Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Better Minds podcast, where we are dedicated to increasing the awareness of the body, mind, and spirit integration by speaking to the people who are invested in this field. Our guest today is a seasoned IT professional with not one, but two degrees in biochemistry and genetics, as well as a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, an honor and an MBA from the University of Witwatersrand. Coupled with that, she is a meditation practitioner with decades of experience, passionate about helping people develop and to grow while challenging her own growth and development. I am pleased to welcome Hansika Mehta, author who has penned the book Meditation for Business. Welcome, Hansika. Just to give a little bit of context around the topic that we're going to be discussing today, in the corporate environment, in business, there's so much of pressure and demand for performance. Everybody needs to perform in order to put the product, their service, or their business ahead. In today's modern work environment, this causes a lot of stress and it impacts work and life balance. In the past few decades, meditation has also been following a very similar path. It's on the rise. More and more people are speaking about it, practicing it, but maybe not completely familiar or aware of it. Today, we're going to be unpacking that specific topic. So, what is meditation, especially in terms of how you see it, and how would you explain it to a layman?
So meditation can be thought of as a practice which one can use a particular technique to exercise or train the mind. And the exact nature of the technique can basically involve three common elements: calming and relaxing the mind, a focus point of attention, awareness and observation of thought.
So, would it be fair to say that where yoga focuses on the physical aspects, meditation focuses on the mental aspects, where you're using your mind to able to do something, calm yourself down, reduce stress. But this is how you can distinguish between what yoga is and what meditation is. Would that be a correct view of it?
Very accurate from summation. And I think maybe what I'd like to stress is that meditation really is training or exercising your mind.
Yeah. I think one of the quotes in your book spoke to that. It said where, you go to the gym or you do exercise for your body, meditation is actually just for your mind, to train your mind. And so let's jump on to the next question. What sparked your interest? Like when did this begin for you? When did meditation become something of a focused area for you? What does it look like for you today? How do you incorporate it into your daily practices?
So I actually started meditation when I was going through a good time in my life. I was super stressed, all level, work, work. And this is about 15 years ago. In the beginning, it was super difficult for me to sit still for even 5 minutes, right? I would feel the need to almost like jump up and do something because I think if you haven't really trained yourself, you are not really used to being still and going within. Does take time. So as I kind of continued and deepened my practice, I found that it brought me immense levels of relaxation and calm. So I continued it, deepened it. And then what I found is it actually started seeing benefits in other areas of my life, right? It may have started off with managing it. And then I found, oh, wait, this is actually helping me to find problems. When you're in that deep state of meditation, your brain will found alpha level. You can actually find problem solving. It's a problem solving state for your mind, right? I find I became better at solving problems. I focused longer. I was more creative. And these are all sort of skills that you need in order to operate better. I mean, as you know, Sudesh, the work this. Got to manage deadlines, people, you have to solve problems, you're on go. So I think there's an angle which we may not go with it, and the meditation can really help anyone to performance overall, not thought manage couple one be better. And I think that's where I started.
So the trigger point sounded like a stressful a life environment, whether it's work, personal, stress comes from anywhere. And that's what prompted you to start looking at meditation. Did you try anything prior to that? Like, did you look at other alternatives, or was meditation the first option that you started exploring?
I think there's many ways to manage stress. There's yoga. I think as a practitioner, you have to actually know actually what's going to work for you, right? Doesn't mean there's one thing. For me, this was my way of actually helping to go.
Yeah, I like that. So it's something that you have to explore. You have to be open to look at different options. And sometimes you get lucky and it could be the first option. And sometimes you have to go through a process of elimination where you try a couple of things, might not be working until eventually you stumble on it. But it sounds like you kind of like hit the nail on the head the very first go. So well done to you.
What I also like what you're saying is because you like good people, right? Not you. If you need to move on to something else. But if you don't actually try, you're moving on with something big. Also, my message to people are when being on it, look at be willing to give it a try. Be open. Watch what boom stuff. There's a lot of things you don't know where the journey will take you.
No, 100%. So you also mentioned that in the beginning it was difficult, 5 minutes might have been something manageable in the beginning, and longer than that you find your mind wanders a lot. And I suppose with anyone on that path, the beginning, I guess, is where you have the steepest learning curve, because that's where you're gonna have all the challenges before you get to a point where you have a certain capability. So for anybody who's starting out on the journey, you, your mind definitely is going to want. Is there something that you need to be concerned about, or is it something that you just work through, push through, and see where it goes? Because people are concerned that they want to able to focus better, and if they turn to meditation, it might not be something that happens straight away. What kind of advice would you give to those people?
Perfectly normal for your mind to run. All you have to do is actually observe it. When they find stop thinking, well, you look back focal point. If your technique is based on it, just not observing the breath again, you know, as you continue, those thoughts become fewer and fewer. And as you're going through the process, think of all of distracting noise in your mind, and you find yourself relaxed, coming calm. I almost became addicted to that. We are always on the go. That mode being kind of so relaxed, a wonderful feeling. And that's why when you try it and you actually try something that you will continue, something that you're gonna love.
Okay, yeah. So once you stick with it, it's eventually something that becomes such a brilliant tool that, like you say, you don't want to stop doing. It's like ice cream. You don't want to keep eating it. Yeah. All right. In terms of the book itself, if we look at the timing of it, it was something that you did during COVID. Is that correct?
But yeah,
So what was the inspiration? Like, what triggered you to say, okay, I want to take my knowledge, my experience that I've had, and I want to share it with other people? What was the trigger? Or, was there something that was drawing you to say, all right, let me take this and put this down into a book that I can share with other people, especially in terms of the angle where you're saying it's meditation for business? The corporate environment, generally speaking, is probably where you face the most amount of stresses and pressures. It's not a natural thing to say, okay, let's go and there's no meditation rooms, there's boardroom, but you won't find a meditation room. So what prompted you to say, all right, let me create this specifically for business people and business environment?
so I think to be honest, I saw how it went with me, right? And I knew that how knew that they were going to say I wanted people to start exploring the conflict, right? Understanding that it's not necessarily a spiritual religious factor. It help ordinary people in the manage their stress to sleep better and to improve on. I don't think there was a particular event they could to be not can't even remember how it's really how I don't know what to write. And I think you touched on a very important meditation is traditionally being seen more from a spiritual or really work you need to kind of advance me. But I think we forget that it's very much a practical sort of experience, right? We say it's stripping regulating the mind, and that can benefit you all. And even from around books in the market, there's a lot of books on meditation as well. But there is very few that actually put on the angle around how somebody in the world.
Yeah, definitely. Some of the examples that you've given in the book is around international organizations, the likes of Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon, Nike, and as well as the CEOs who practice meditation, Jeff Weiner, Andrea Huffington. So these are really big names, the big organizations that have adopted this practice, and they probably wouldn't have done it if there wasn't enough scientific backing, scientific knowledge and research that's actually backing it up. And it's very, very scientific. The benefits are already very well documented. So then, why are more businesses not adopting it? Let me put it that way. So even the international organizations that use it, if you look at the scope of what is possible, surely there's still a massive gap. And what is the opportunities or the obstacles that are stopping people from moving more into it?
So I think there has been a trend, right? On a personal level, I think not only in meditation, but I think organizations are starting to shift toward becoming a lot more not about making money, but they're almost shifting in the way they operate, becoming around solving real solving problems, right? But if you think about they invest heavily in corporate health and wellness programs for their employees, right? Every large corporate is going to got something on cards because it's in their best interest, kind of make sure that their employees are healthy and in a good state, right? So I think there's an opportunity to make use of existing these health and wellness programs and extending it to simply into your meditation inquiry. So a lot of companies will sort of work with third-party organizations to support their staffs, right? And these are almost seen as suppliers into corporate. One of the opportunities would be for these sort of organizations to think about marketing and bringing meditation and offering them to their staff. So, for example, typically a corporate would have lessons around how to manage money. So you almost bring in another topic, how to manage stress, and then you bring in meditation in. And there's a bit of an opportunity for organizations to kind of adopt model. But I think we are starting to see a shift because even in South Africa, it's becoming a lot more common to have meditation people come to corporate, speak at it. I've seen it in the own organization that I work at, seen it in supporting organization. I think bring it.
In other words, we might be at the beginning stages, specifically around our local context, where people are starting to become more sensitized to it. The awareness is growing. And like you mentioned, there is actually an easy path into the corporate environment through the wellness providers that already have a presence within these companies. And it could just be another service or option that they do provide. It's just a matter of increasing that awareness.
Accurate summation. Other challenge is in the US and Europe, there's a lot of research. There's a lot more publications. South Africa, it's a little bit hard. We don't have as much information published around what our leadership team, but what we particular corps are doing. So it's a lot more paper. And I think, but you can see the trend.
If we look at your book, I noticed that you had an entire chapter dedicated to mindfulness. Could you clarify for us what the difference is and similarity? So, what the difference or the similarities are between mindfulness and meditation?
So meditation typically refers to a formal stated practice in which you can practice any number of techniques, right? Such as concentrating on your breath or an object. It's an intentional practice in which you focus to increase your concentration, awareness, or balance. In contrast, mindfulness involves being present in the moment in whatever you're doing. So you become aware of your emotion, your thought and feelings. Mindfulness can be practiced internally, anywhere and anytime, or even as part as a formal meditation technique. So if you have to sum up the two, meditation, concentration, setting aside something to do something, mindfulness, being present, being in tune with what's going on around you and within you.
I need to remain present. But to be able to do that, there's certain level of practice that required. So my thought process is that do the meditation. If you do that well, you're going to become mindful. Is it the wrong approach to it?
I don't know if there's a real right or wrong answer to the question, right? I probably see it a little bit differently. Mindfulness is almost easier to practice. So you can do it anyway. If you're washing your hands, you just start focusing on how does the soap feel? How would my hands feeling? What is the sensation? And you become totally focused on the particular action, right? Washing my hands. How does the water, what is the temperature of the hand? It's almost easier, right? Because you focus on doing something, be it focusing on mindful eating, on drawing, or whatever it is, walking, whatever. And when you're meditating, it's almost like mindfulness becomes a part of the practice. You can sit down and then you're formally deciding to kind of become mindful. I think it's a little bit hard to maybe explain the exact interlink between the two, but that's a little bit how I see it. Maybe what I will just add on is it brings out its own benefits, right? You're shutting down the noise and all of the other things floating around in your mind. You're focusing on one thing and you become a lot more calmer and relaxed. There's no distraction. There's no other what if, what should I do? I do this? Do I do that? Noise typically comes from the mind, right? Focusing on the activity, by doing that, you're allowing yourself to be relaxed.
Oh, in your book, you also cover a lot of different meditation techniques. There's a lot of them. And I was just thinking to myself, I felt a bit overwhelmed. Wow, there's so many techniques that I never heard of half of them. From a theoretical perspective, it's great to understand that there are these many techniques and how to use them. But in a more practical way, how can we use the information in your book to able to either start or to strengthen a journey of meditation?
And as they, we also need to remember that all of us are different. We learn differently. We need different things, right? And that's why the fact that there's so many different meditation techniques out there is great because you can find something that's suitable to you, right? So, for example, let's maybe touch on some of the different kinds of meditation, right? There's movement meditation. So it's a workable solution for somebody that struggles to sit still. You can basically meditate while you walk or something, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga. If you're super stressed, there's progressive relaxation, which is a great way to kind of reduce tension and stress in your body. It basically involves like slowly tightening and relaxing one muscle group in the body. If you've got a lot of anger issues or you've got a lot of irritability, a loving kindness like meditation would be great because it focuses on bringing more wasn't love emotion into your mind. If you're very much a sort of a person that likes to eat, you might want to do a mantra meditation. If you're a visual person, visualization technique. I think that's the great thing. There's a lot of different techniques. Start with something fairly simple. And then as you explore it, you'll naturally kind of gravitate to the technique that works for you.
While you were speaking, I thought to myself, wow, there's quite a lot of psychological understanding that needs to happen for somebody to eventually find something that works for them. How do they actually start up that process in a meaningful way?
I mean, I think it goes back to what I said in the beginning, right? Find a technique that helps you focus your attention. Typically, great starter one, something like a candle meditation or breathing, where you just focus on the breathing coming in and out of your nostrils, right? While I'm saying there's lots of different types of meditation, they typically involve the same element. Focus point of attention, calming and relaxing the mind, and generally, and increasing and observing your thoughts. If you find a technique with those three basic elements in place, it helps you to get started. And then you can always shift to something else.
And I also noticed that in the book, there's quite a lot of information around mudra in the hand gestures that you would hold. So if you are doing a typical meditation where you're seated with your eyes closed, you would able to hold a mudra. And I'm not sure if there was a correlation between holding the mudra and any specific meditation technique, or is this something that you could, even if you're not meditating? So let's say we're having this conversation, I'm sitting here, but I want to practice a mudra. Is it something that's linked to the entire meditative process, or is it something that just is independent and works on its own?
So it is actually independent. It doesn't have to be coupled with a meditation technique. I mean, this uh, prac- again, they kind of target different areas in your brain and find one that works for you. Or basic one, the universal one is just basically keeping your hand open in a circle.
Okay. Yeah, this one. Yeah.
That's sort of position.
So mudras are actually a very, very easy way to start the journey without a lot and lots of effort or understanding. This is a really easy way to start taking control of some aspect of your body, of your mind, and then from there you can start progressing. I know I've heard people say that if you're having a very busy day, even if you can do a meditation for a minute or two or 90 seconds, you should do that. And I'm not quite certain what exactly that means. How would you actually benefit from such a short meditation?
I think you have to start somewhere. Right? If you're starting, if somebody's a beginner level, expecting them to do 30 minutes or even 20 minutes might be a bit of a harder ask, right? If you go to start small and then build your way up, it shouldn't even be forced, right? Because if you start small and you're finding the benefit, you're going to automatically start increasing time, right? I would recommend if you can do a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, why not? Build it up over time. Try to target eventually at least around 20 to 30 minutes a day, right? But that doesn't have to be your starting point.
I love
I
that.
mean, like I said, when I first started, I literally couldn't find. I would sit in alarm. I would put an alarm, and I would sit and force myself to sit still for 5 minutes, and that was incredibly difficult. So I think minute, 90 seconds, build it up over time. That's the way to go.
I love that message. I think that's something, if somebody can stick with a minute or 2 or 5 minutes for however long, a week, a month, and then grow from that, at least they're getting somewhere. So that's brilliant.
I'm just gonna make one last comment. It shouldn't be forced. But you shouldn't be forcing yourself. Like if you find that you're really not enjoying it, it may not be for you. Find something else.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share with anybody who's interested in this journey?
I think I would always advise anybody to follow their own intuition and guidance. You always have the answer, right? You will be guided around what you need to do, whether you should start by yourself, whether you should follow through. But the basics are dedicate some time to it, set up right, wear comfortable clothing, and be disciplined about it. It would be a good starting point.
We tend to look for answers externally all the time, and we forget that, that we have an intuition and we just need to listen to it. So just go with it, take one step forward, and just keep moving. Really enjoyed it talking about your book as well as your personal journey, as well as the emphasis on really start anywhere, start with as few seconds as you need to, but find a way forward in your own personal growth and development. And if meditation is part of your journey and your growth development, then definitely embrace it. And we definitely would like to see more and more people going forward in their growth journey, whatever practice it might be. So thank you so much for that.